Hello, Bright Bible. This is Monica, and I'm super glad to be joining you as always for our Thursday study. I'm going to have some crazy supplies. I've got some chalk, some stamp pastels. You could use chalk pastels for this of any kinds, but some dry material. I also have gessoed my page, which I very, very rarely do, but I do use Dina Wakley's medium, which is a clear gesso. You could also use Art Basics. There's all sorts of clear gesso out there, but I wanted to prep the page primarily because I want to do some stamping with this. So if you have stamps readily available, I'm going to give you all sorts of ways to do this page differently, but I have some tree stamps. And so if you have anything that is a tree that you could use, or even some florals, I think that you'll enjoy kind of the idea that we've got going with that. So that would be one thing, with some black ink. And then some, I would say either some, I have this really cool set from Illustrated Faith with some different words of God, words of God or Jesus. But if you had just some alpha stamps, that would work too. And like I said, as we go through the process, I've got some really specific materials at hand today for this page, but I'm going to talk you through it and how you could do it differently, but still get a very similar effect. Now, I am working in my big Bible today, my interleaved Bible, especially because I have this great prep on the first book, the first page of the book, and I love that. I love to be able to do something kind of big and decorative when I've got that blank set. Gospel of Mark, chapter 1. I'm going to go ahead and read this passage to you. And really, to be honest with you, I'm going to read through 45 because I want to connect it. But I'm looking very much at 35 through 39. Jesus preaches in Galilee. And rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed and went out to a desolate place, and there he prayed. And Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and they found him and said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." And he said to them, "Let us go on to the next towns, that I may preach there also, for that is why I came out." And he went throughout all Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and casting out demons. Jesus cleanses a leper. So now I'm going to go ahead on to verse 40, which is kind of the next section, but I still think there's some relevance here to what we're going to talk about tonight. And the leper came to him, imploring him, and kneeling, said to him, "If you will, you can make me clean." I love that faith. Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I will be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. And Jesus sternly charged him and sent him away at once and said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourselves to the priests and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded for proof to them." But he went out and began to talk freely about it and to spread the news, so that Jesus could no longer openly enter a town, but it was out in desolate places, and people were coming to him from every quarter. The thing that struck me about this whole passage, and maybe there's bits and pieces here that everybody will probably take differently, but the thing that reached out to me, and maybe it has to do with the fact that we spent this week really celebrating the opening of our Bible journaling retreat. So I have retreat on the brain. But one of the things that's really interesting to me is that Jesus goes out into this desolate place, into this desert, to be alone in prayer. And then, because of this situation here with the cleansing of the leper, it says, interestingly enough, that he was no longer openly to enter town, but was out in the desolate places, but people were coming to him there. And to me, this is interesting. It's an interesting piece of information to me, because it makes me really think about that opportunity that we have to rest and retreat in him when we're alone with him. and that we're never too far away to reach out to God and to speak to him. But that I really feel that Jesus was an example here to us, that when we're speaking to our Father in heaven, that there is something to be benefited from that one-to-one, that going away out of the noise, going away from the distractions that surround us, that's where we can really meet him in a deeper place. And I think I don't know, there's something to that for me. And hopefully you see that piece as well. It's also very intriguing to me that it didn't matter that Jesus was out of this city. People were flocking to him because they knew who he was. They sought him and they wanted that healing and they wanted to see him and they were willing to go that distance to get there. I don't know. I just love that about this verse. And I really, because this is the start of this chapter or the start of this book, and there's so much here about Jesus' ministry and his disciples and their whole experience with Jesus on earth. I just wanted to celebrate him in this passage. So what I've got for us tonight is a printable. This is one of the 3 printables. They are on a sheet. That printable will be there for you with 3 different versions of Jesus as a silhouette. Now, we've used silhouettes a couple of times in our last studies, and we're going to do something really different with this. And I'm going to be honest with you, I have no real idea where this is going to end up. It could be a total disaster. Let's be honest, it could be. We're going to hope that it's not. So I'm using the idea of a simple silhouette, but in a very different way. We're actually going to use this as a stencil to block out and to keep white the area. So we're kind of doing a reverse silhouette. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is cut that out. And I did use kind of a heavier duty paper. I probably didn't need to for this, but I think if you do have cardstock, it's always a little easier to work with when you're doing some cuts. And then I'm just going to use my washi tape and put a few rolls of that washi tape around this stencil. Okay. But when you're using a silhouette like this, I always just tape it down because this washi is so good. Washi tape is just so amazing. What a great invention. It's uses are widespread, I would say. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this guy down. And that's just going to help me to have a little bit more ease about things as I go through the process that I'm going to take us on. I'm actually going to, I think I'm going to leave it. Oh, leave him there. Okay, so now that he is down here, what I really want to I want to do this kind of in two folds, okay? Actually, 3 folds. Number 1, I want to use dry color. So that's why I have these really wonderful stamping pastels. Okay, they're not, these are a little bit on the older side, but they're still working pretty good for me. Okay, so I've kind of got these pastels here. And then I also have my pan pastels, which are very rich colored pigments. They're messy in the sense of they're just extremely pigmented. So if I chop into them at all, they get a little bit messy and spread everywhere. So we're going to be super careful. We may or may not dip into those depending on where we go here. My second step, so that's going to be kind of to give us some color. We're going to look at this as like morning light, okay? Morning sunrise. We're going to also use an old technique that I've used with you guys in the past where we're going to actually rip some paper, such as this. We're going to give ourselves some mountain lines. And we'll line those up kind of over that. And we'll give ourselves some layers. But that kind of furthermost layer is where we're going to do some stamping. So it kind of appears as though there's that wilderness out before him. All right, now the other options that I would see, what if you don't have any pastels? I'm using this big old fluffy thing. I hope it works. Let's see if it works. Very lightly. I might have to go to the pastels. We'll see how this works. If you don't have any chalk pastels, okay, how could you do this? Well, you could do this with watercolor for sure. Definitely watercolor. But if you did with watercolor, just understand that this may get a little, you'd have to be pretty particular, I would say, around certain areas of your stencil, because of course that's going to, it'll get wet and it won't have such a strong edge, I guess. So I'm just kind of using some light colors in the sky, those kind of sunsetty colors. I have to tell you, I did something funky when I put my gesso on, so you may see some weird little lines in there. I'm not stressed about it, but I definitely can see that something went haywire there. Anything wet material. So if you were going to use like acrylic paint to do this part, or you're going to do the watercolors, or you're going to do maybe stamping inks over the top of this for your background color, I think that's all great. You just have to be a lot more cautious about stuff sliding under your stencil and then kind of ruining the look of your stencil. So I'm going to do this just to kind of hold that guy in place, and I'll have to move it here in a minute. Chalks as often. I don't know why. It's like something that we don't talk about as much with Bible journaling, but it really is a great option for sure. And the only thing is, you just want to make sure you spray it with some sort of a fixative, and that could be something as simple as hairspray. Take this off to make sure I did not leave any weird marks here, and I'll hold this hand down and just kind of go over that a little bit more careful. Okay, now what I'm going to do is to use my paper and kind of give myself a few lines of what I would consider hills in the background. So I'm going to start here, I think, with some, let's see. Ooh, I had a brighter yellow. I didn't even know I had this yellow. Let me see if I can add some of this in. Not going to change it too much. So I think what I'm going to do here is kind of start with like a bluish purpley. Because I'm not really sure that I want to go like totally dark yet. I've even hit this with a little green. So what I'm going to do is just kind of push this off, and it's going to change it up a little bit. Little grayed down. Might have to get in here with my finger a little bit more. But I'm just going to start to create some look of hills. And this first one is going to be not as obvious. There we go. Because of the fact that I've got these different colors here, like already underneath. But I think as I come down into here, it's going to end up being more and more kind of grayed down. What I'm going to do here at the bottom is just kind of fill this in. I'm going to use some purples, and eventually I'll probably get to some black as well. But I'm definitely going heavier on the colors towards the bottom. The mess, you want to blow it off, not obviously wipe it of any kind. And then the other thing is just making sure that you spray it with some sort of fixative. So here's kind of what I've got so far. I've kind of just distinguished this top area of sun and the bottom area of the darkness. Now we're going to take this and spray it right now. Now that does not guarantee a single thing. So just because we're spraying it doesn't mean that it's still not going to, possibly get mucked up with our hand or, rub off onto our other page. So there's ways that we can prevent those things from happening, at least minimize them, and spraying it is one of those things. So that's what I'm going to do here. Don't be alarmed because my hairspray is often clogged. So if we get spots, it's okay. I'm not going to freak out. But I'm definitely going to give this a little spritz, okay? And make sure that that's there. I'm going to dry this for just a split second, so bear with me here. Okay, so now that that is all set, I've got super purpley hands. I want to get rid of these hands first. So let me get some baby wipe here, just a smidge of baby wipe. And I'll clean up a little bit, and then we will take this stencil off. And of course, we're hoping for a decently, and I say decently because we are not looking for perfection here, especially with chalk pastel. And this is why I said, if you use watercolor for this technique or something else, you've got to be cautious because it tends to bleed under that stencil. That's going to be the same thing here with our little dusts of chalk. However, we do have a decent silhouette, but opposite, right? Opposite silhouette. So my vision here is actually, there's a lot you can do with this. If at this point, you could color this in another color, you could do some design work, you could do your wording into this. I want to try something here with kind of this layering effect of stamping. And so the first thing I'm going to do is try to erase a little tiny bit, and it may be a giant disaster, but I'm going to go ahead and try it. So I'm going to very, very gently take off some, okay, without getting too stressed out about a little bit of smudging, but I'm going to try to take off a little bit of extra, which this is working. If you have a good poly eraser, as I always say, oftentimes it can at least help you clean up a little bit, and I feel this is pretty successful. Got a little bit of smears, it's okay. Again. And then what I want to do is actually take the part of the paper. Now this is going to be mind-blowing for you, okay? We're going to take the part of the paper that we had cut this out of, and we're going to lay it over the top. Okay, so when you cut out your stencil, I want you to keep the paper so that we can line this up right there. Okay, you can see how that is going to fit. And we're going to do a very similar block out with our washi tape. So I'm going to take the washi tape, put it in a few places, okay, and I'll be able to see the difference here, and you may, and I'm going to just tell you this right now, you may peel up a little tiny bit of your color underneath with the washi. That's why I wouldn't put as much, but I definitely want to hold this at least a little bit in place for what we're going to do next with this. Now, I am blessed to have this set of stamps from Illustrated Faith. I have no idea where they came from. I did not order them, but somewhere along the lines, I've inherited these stamps or someone gifted them to me. And I love that they have all these different words and they're written, names of the Lord, but they're written in different fonts as well. And I think that's super duper cool. So basically, if you did not have this, I think you could do a very similar effect of what I'm about to do with pen. To be honest with you, you could write these out using color and then work to the black, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to do lots of layering. But you could also do this with like alpha stamps. Okay, so if you have something like this, these acrylic plates, you could do that. You could also load this guy up because we've got this blocked out. We could load this up and do lots at the same time. That's a little bit too much for me. I want to have a little more control, so this is what I'm going to do. And this is going to be a little bit of stamping, okay? Little bit of stamping. So I am going to line up a couple of these, and you'll get the idea. I may not finish this like with you guys right this second, but I'm going to show you the point and then I'll show you the end. Okay, I'm just going to go with these few right now. And then what I'll do here is I will start with color. So we're just like if we were doing colored pencil, we're going to start with our lighter colors first. And I'm going to just stick with like, let's see what I've got here. Let's see. I think what I'm going to do is this blue. I think I'm going to do a blue, a purple. Oh, I do have two different blues. Let me try that out. I'll stick with the blues for a second here, and then if I need to add in, because basically I want to get some lighter color underneath this thing, and then stamp right over the top. So I'm going to be like a crazy stamper, to be honest with you. And I do have a piece of paper underneath, and again, for those of you that kind of joined in a little later, they are, this page is gessoed, because I want to be able to do exactly what I'm about to do. And that is just stamp, stamp, stamp through this. And in no rhyme or reason, okay, am I going to worry about overlapping or anything like that. I may be cautious like one layer at a time. But I'm not going to worry if things overlap because I'm really just filling this space with these words. Okay? Actually, that was probably enough for that color. So there's like one layer, okay? I'm going to wipe this off, put some new words on there, and then I'm going to change my color, if that makes sense. So I'll change the color up. When I do my last layer, I'll probably be a little more picky with the black so that I see lots of words. I may do like one word at a time, but I'll take these off. Let's do this Most High is kind of cool. Get this on here. I've got a Distress Oxide, a little bit different color. This first color that I chose is, what is this called? Cornflower Blue by Archival. Big fan of Ranger's Archival. Totally different blue here. Let's see what this does. This was a little bit lighter even. There are just some inks that take an extremely long time to dry. So just be prepared for that, okay? Be prepared that that may happen to you. All right, I think what I'm going to do here is go like here and here and then do the black. Okay, so now I'm going to be on to the black, and these words will kind of fade to the background as that black kind of takes over the top. But I'm going to be a little more, I think I'm actually going to pull out this big dog because I definitely want to have some different lettering here. So here's this. I'll get all my words on here and kind of fill these in a little bit more on the tighter side. Yeah, then I can stamp more together. But if you do leave a lot of white spots, then you're not going to see that silhouette. And you want there to be so much color and pattern here that it kind of just doesn't really matter. It just becomes like a colorful thing. But you can see those words popping through, which is super duper duper awesome. All right, I think I've got just about all of them on there that I want. Let's see, I've got one more Eternal here. Let's put this on here. Eternal. I might go Eternal Father. Let's do that. Eternal Father. Okay, so that's the beauty of this big guy. Isn't that so awesome? This black was super good investment. Okay, and then I'm going to take that black and I'm just going to do this so that I could see what I'm doing. Stamping right over the top, making sure I'm getting a good coating. And oftentimes with these poly, whatever they call these things, acrylic stamps, it looks like there's not a lot of ink there because it's just kind of setting on the surface, but there's plenty. And then I'll find a spot, stamp that over, okay, and I'm going to do that a couple of times to just fill in some of those spots. It looks messy. I think it looks kind of cool though. I'm kind of digging it. And we're going to do some more in the background with the trees and just kind of solidify that front line a little bit. Go up in here. Right in here. It's a little tricky over here. I might just do like a partial. Down in here. Over here. Yeah, just make sure that you've got those areas filled in. Cool! Okay, so now that this is set, I'm going to make sure my area is cleaned up because it is, I wish you guys could see around this camera. Holy bejeebers, it is a mess. And then what I'll do is very carefully, remember it's going to peel, it may peel a little color, that didn't do too bad. Give ourselves this vision here, okay, of Jesus' silhouette with all those words as he comes before his Father in the morning, before his day's work. I mean, it's really, really a beautiful image of him going before his Father. And if someone, this is what I look at. I look at the idea that if Jesus himself, the Son of God, God himself, he goes before the Father because he knows the importance of that, then we have to do that. We have to recognize the importance of going before him in the silence and in the storm. I mean, the reality is, right, we don't always have that moment to get away the way that Jesus did in this moment. But just, he understood how incredibly vital that was to his relationship. And here he was in his ministry. And in his ministry, he recognized that he needed his Father right beside him to help him through, to guide him through. So I'm going to do, hopefully I'm not going to do anything to ruin this, but I would like to get some trees in this background. So I'm going to do this. When I get to, and I'm going to use some black down in here in a minute, but when I get to the part where I'm here, back on my silhouette, I'm going to want to block that out. So make sure that when you get here, you put your silhouette back on. I can't find mine, of course, because I'm in the middle of teaching, so I may just use a piece of paper like that, and I'll get another tree on here. But I felt like I just kind of wanted this background to look like it was in the wilderness or in the trees or wherever, that there was some sort of a horizon. So I'm going to just continue to kind of place these, I don't know, just in a row, a little bit, little something. It doesn't need to be much, but just something. And let's see, I'm going to go here first. Get another little tree. Got this bigger pine. I really do love these tree stamps. Look at how cool these are. This was a great set. This was definitely a set from like Joann's or one of the craft stores for sure. I'm a huge fan of like the trees, the natural look. I really, really loved those. This is going to be a tricky one. Yeah, that is not going to work. Hold on. I have to do this one kind of like on its own. I have to do this sometimes. That's the beauty of these being acrylic. If I had a wooden block stamp, that would not have worked so well. So get that on there, and then I'm going to just do one more, probably down in here, or just take that stamp back. Get it back on there. Kind of like this. Yeah. Okay. So you can play around with that. I may go back in there, put another little tree. I think it's enough. I just wanted a little bit of something. And then, as a final touch, I want to fade that out. So this is where I would want to either get my black ink and actually like a little bit, or I can take some of that darker black. I think I have a true black chalk. Yeah, I do. True black pastel, and just kind of fade this out. And some of this, because it's got that gesso underneath, it may, yeah, look at that. Just kind of bring these down. And I like to do that with those stamps in that way, just so there isn't such a raw edge. There's nothing like just seeing that, just sitting there. Well, I want this to be like a picture. I want this to fade in. So I'll kind of just bring that down off the line of these trees a little bit. Fade that in. Give myself a little bit of that early morning. And it does. The beautiful part about this passage is it says, and rising very early in the morning, while it was still dark, he departed. And to me, this is exactly what I envision, is like this, barely seeing the colors yet because the day has just begun. And going before the Father, asking him for guidance and wisdom before our day even gets started, before any of our work comes, before any of that ministry happens, that we go before the Lord and ask him. So that is today's lesson, and definitely unique, definitely had a very unique vision of this. I hope you enjoy some of the process, some of the difference of materials that you'll consider, and enjoy your experience with this page.